Hi, everyone. We're here with Doc. This is our second time together.
And this time will be better than the last.
Yes, and I'm so appreciative of the fact that last time you were out and about doing so many great things that maybe if you want to mention again, whatever it is that you were doing, because I forgot, but I know it was something great. And you still took the time to meet. And I was like, oh my gosh, punctual, professional. So what were you doing? What were you doing?
I was preparing for Martin Lawrence's charity event where we give gifts to 100 children and make their day and make them the celebrities for the day. We have a lot of Hollywood celebrities that come out and they celebrate the children and give them hope for the future. And that day I was rushing to deliver the T-shirts to UPS so that they could get there on time. And we got them there on time, but the sunlight.
We just didn't have the light in the car, and I was like, oh man, I hope he got a good episode.
And we did. We did.
Yeah, I thought your message was very powerful.
Thank you very much.
I love listening to you.
All praises to God.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I want to maybe if you'd like to share a little bit about you. And
Absolutely. Well, I'm a committed family man. I'm a husband, a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. My team keeps saying, don't say grandfather, great-grandfather, because that makes you seem older. But it is who I am. I'm youthful in every sense of the word. I still play basketball, and that gets me going every day. And I love to get out hiking, walking, and, just being a part of nature. So that's important to me. For years, I served as the top assistant to Harold Washington, Chicago's mayor. And what happened was in 1982, he announced his candidacy for mayor. And every fiber of my being stood up. And I knew I had to get involved. So I took a leave of absence from law school. And I helped to develop the Lawyers Committee for Harold Washington, served as president of law students for Harold Washington, served as his assistant scheduler. And then I became his direct assistant. In that capacity, I traveled with him locally, nationally, and internationally. I sat in on 70% of his meetings. I reorganized the departments of streets and sanitation, the Department of Water, Department of Sewers, Department of Inspectional Services, and those were the largest departments in city government. So I'm competent, knowledgeable, experienced, and I'm fully conversant with the functions, operations, and inner workings of municipal government. I think the thing that separates me from the other candidates in the race is I'm passionate. I will fight for people morning, noon, and night. It doesn't matter, and I don't take no for an answer. That's important to me because people are without hope nowadays, and people feel like government doesn't represent them. Well, I want people to know that I'm going to keep Las Vegas's promise. That's a commitment to public safety, public education, affordable housing, senior care, full employment, balanced economic development, equal access for the disabled, charity, and making certain that we take care of those who are weak, afflicted, infirm, and disoriented. That's my job. That's what I was called to do. I tell people all the time, I wish I was called to preach, but I wasn't, because nothing comes before God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit in my life. But I'm not trying to create a theocracy. It doesn't matter what a person's belief is. We're going to do everything that needs to be done to make them more comfortable and make this a safe and affordable city.
That's amazing. Since it's February, I want to hear your thoughts on one video. If you don't mind, we're going to share video number 1.
Sure.
I'll go right into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hear what your thoughts are.
History Month you find ridiculous. Why? You're going to relegate my history to a month? Oh, come on. What do you do with yours? Which month is Black History Month? I'm Jewish. Okay. Which month is Jewish History Month? There isn't one. Oh. Why not? Yeah. You want what? No, I don't either. I don't want Black History Month. Black history is American history. How are we going to get rid of racism and stop talking about it? I'm going to stop calling you a white man. Yeah. And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man. I know you as Mike Wallace. You know me as Morgan Freeman. You know what I'm saying? I know this white guy named Mike Wallace. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so I know you're probably like, where is she going with this?
No. It's interesting.
Black History Month, still the month, and as a mayor, this is still an issue that persists. It's still something that's there, right?
Mhm.
And I think that relegating the history of Black people in just 1 month, to me, that's an insult.
Mm.
And we need to be advocating for an integrated approach to history that acknowledges Black contributions year round rather than just, isolating to a specific month.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on this?
Thank you. From 1619 to 1865, we had 246 years of legalized slavery in America. It took the Underground Railroad, a Civil War, the suspension of the Constitution, and 3 constitutional amendments to finally end that shamefully brutal institution. I think people need to be reminded of that because it explains that Black people are people who have no name because we've been called Negroes, we've been called Black, we've been called African American, and everything under the sun. So we don't really have an identity. We also don't have a way of reaching back to our homeland and talking to our ancestors and figuring out who we are and where we come from and what the mission of our family is and how well our family is doing or how poorly our family is doing, so that we can either take inspiration from those that are doing well or provide service to those who need our assistance. I think that it's important to remember those things. It's just like the Holocaust. You have to always remember those things. Now, do I get hung up in whether or not it's 1 month or 2 months or the entire year? I don't, because I live it every single day. I have a poem, and I'll recite part of it for you. I might be able to recite all of it for you. And it's called Runaway Slave. I'm the descendant of an African whom Massa gave the nonsensical label, runaway slave, a pejorative oxymoron, ridiculous but grave, criminalizing the brave who wouldn't stay on the plantation and behave. I censure the decision of the Pale Enclave to conjoin the mutually exclusive terms runaway and slave as a means of manufacturing an irrational phrase, which demeans my ancestor in multitudinous ways. If you scrutinize that flawed terminology with your third eye focused on linguistic veracity, you'll see how incompatible and contradictory the words runaway and slave are categorically. Hear ye, hear ye. Verily I submit to thee. The phrase runaway slave should be banished from the annals of history, forbidden for all eternity, never to be seen, written, or uttered publicly. But as from the cup of truth I sip, I admit that upon the docking of the ship, my ancestor was chained and in Massa's grip, sold at auction, evidenced by a parchment slip, which fails in its purport as a certificate of slave ownership. For one is not a slave because of legal declaration, nor does slavery result from physical incarceration. Holding one against their will with government validation, forcing them to pick cotton without compensation, doesn't result in slave confirmation. To enslave someone, you must alter their mentality or break their will to be free. Defiantly like an oak tree, resolutely like African ivory, my ancestor wouldn't submit integrity despite Massa's plea. Whipped, beaten, and called a foul name, ensuring punishment wrought with pain. My ancestor dreamed beyond the slave game, vowing until death to remain. Another warrior Massa could not tame. This final epithet my ancestor gave of my refusal to submit, don't boast and rave, just erase from my tombstone the label runaway slave. So, yeah, I wrote that years ago, and I used to take it around to schools and give it to the young children. And many of them chose to memorize it and enter poetry competitions with that. And at the end, they would say, by William Doc Walls. So it would make the parents, I'm your father. And parents would send me later and say, my child recites that poem over and over again. But one, if you notice, it's full of words that are challenging, and it made those children think and help to take them to another level. So poetry is one of my favorite things.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
And wow.
Thank you.
I think if we're going back to, what was it, the 60s, right?
Yeah,
I think it was,
1960s.
yeah, was it Lyndon
Civil
B. Johnson when
Lyndon B. Johnson, yeah.
he kind of started adding all the
Civil rights,
right?
and voting rights.
Yeah, and what was the Civil Rights Act in 1964?
65. Mhm.
And that was, I don't know, because that's a little bit on the, we're having mixed conversations on that. There are a lot of people that say, well, he actually introduced, all these programs, social welfare programs,
Mhm.
but he used, in other words, he actually, the social welfare policies initiated in the 60s have diabolically harmed black communities.
Mhm.
My understanding is that the Democrats, by positioning themselves as the allies of these communities, have made them more reliant on assistance, thereby undermining their independence and strength. What are your thoughts on that?
It was interesting because when welfare was first created, it was called aid to dependent families with children. When white people applied, that's what it was. But when black people applied, it was basically after daddy cut out. So it was two different standards. White families, the entire family, male, female, and children, could receive public aid. Black families couldn't. If there was a father that was present in the home, they would not allow them to have
Spot on.
public aid. So it became a perception. And the perception became that Black people are living off of public aid. But the truth was, per capita, there were more whites living off of public aid than Black people. So it became a stereotype. And we became victimized by those stereotypes. And as a result, we had to fight for justification just to prove that we were as worthy as anyone else. You have to remember, when integration came about, that meant that Black people could finally go into white stores. But the question was, were you shopping while Black? Because they would follow you around, especially if you went into the downtown clothing stores or places like that, or department stores. Department stores were a new concept. Whereas prior to that, Blacks had shopped in their own community. And as a result, you had a lot of Black businesses that were flourishing and thriving. But when integration came about, whites didn't come and shop in the Black stores. Blacks left the Black stores and started shopping in the white stores, and all of those Black businesses failed. So that really was a downfall. I mean, not quite as bad as Black Wall Street, but it was also a failure of society.
Right. And I can see how you can help the Black communities in the city. And I know you also have a huge passion for homelessness. What would be the things that you would change? How would you improve?
Yeah. So just to know, Las Vegas is only 10% Black. And that Black community is spread out all across Las Vegas, almost like a diaspora in and of itself. But my goals are to make certain that we, one, establish irreproachable public safety services, develop and efficiently maintain our public infrastructure, enrich the Department of Aging and Disability Services to ensure the health and well-being of our senior citizens, provide a superior public school education for each and every individual child. Through public initiatives, private initiatives, and comprehensive tax reform, we got to stimulate our local economy to foster full employment. We have to maximize public, private, and not-for-profit partnerships to eradicate homelessness, poverty, and despair. I believe that housing is a human right.
I believe so.
And homelessness is a human rights violation. And if we don't make certain that we take care of the least of ours, we're in trouble, because the purpose of government is to provide for the common defense, ensure civility, and to take care of those who are weak, afflicted, infirm, or disoriented. The attitude here amongst some of my opponents and the current administration is, let's just give them a bus ticket to somewhere and get them out of sight, out of mind. But no, we have to heal those people, because when they were able-bodied and able-minded and they were working, we worked them, to no end. And we needed them, and we, wanted them, and we valued them. But now that they've fallen off, for whatever reason, sometimes it's of their own making, sometimes it's not, we want to discard them. I don't believe in discarding people. I believe in helping everybody to achieve their goals. And there are enough of us. We rescue cats and dogs, don't we?
Right. And I'm going to share a little. Like I went to San Francisco last week, and maybe it's my mind. I'm very skeptical, a little bit suspicious, but the homelessness there increased by what 400%.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, and it was a unique experience because I walked by harmless homeless people, but then I'm going inside the stores, and the stores have like this anxiety. I asked this guy, would you mind if I bought something, could I please have some change? Oh no, we don't give change. Is the ATM working? No, the ATM. He puts his mask on. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like why aren't they? So I'm thinking, to me, at this point, I'm starting to think, why are they allowing so much homelessness? Is that an excuse and a pretext to introduce more socialist policies? Because they were talking about, like, even in the hotel, it's Marriott. Why would I need a card to go use the restroom in the lobby? Well, because it's not safe. They're putting this unsafe stigma.
Right.
I've never seen a homeless person come in this Marriott. So, and then what is this? Homelessness persists not because of insufficient safety nets, but due to deliberate government inaction or flawed policies. Could that be why they're not fixing the homelessness situation?
Yeah, that could be part of the problem. So you have a lot of people who feel better about themselves when they see people who are doing horribly. They say, well, at least that's not me. And government needs that. And that's how you keep people inspired, because, it's a way of saying to people, well, don't come and complain because you could be that person. So we do have a tendency to create an underclass of people, but it shouldn't be. And the reason is because we have all of the resources that we need to take care of people. We take care of people in other countries.
Right.
We
Billions
billions and billions of dollars, and we could have solved our homelessness issue a long time ago. So the good news is I have solutions. Part of the problem is people don't understand homelessness because it's lumped all into one category. But the truth is there's several layers of homelessness. And people have different tolerance levels when it comes to homelessness, and that desire to help certain people or willingness to help certain people in certain classes of homelessness. The first thing you have to do is focus on prevention. We have to make sure that we don't have one more person become homeless here in Las Vegas. The next thing we have to do is recognize that there are people, oftentimes families, who have working parents or a working parent who just got laid off and they couldn't pay their rent, or they made one bad decision, which could happen to all of us, and they couldn't pay their rent. So now they're sofa surfing. They're sleeping under the roof of a family member or friend, may not even have a key to the door, but they are sofa surfing. Then you have those people who are living in transient motels at their own expense because they can't afford to put down a deposit on the place, or they can't demonstrate that they make 3 times the amount of rent at a particular place, or they've gotten bad credit for whatever reason, and they just can't qualify for a place. Then you have those persons who are sleeping in their cars. And all of the above are probably working every single day. So most people are tolerant of those people. They say, oh, they just fell down on their luck. But we need to focus on that and have people assist those people that they're willing to help. But then it gets a little more dicey. You have people who are squatters, who break into houses and squat. And the truth is, there's a major law against that. It is an aggravated misdemeanor. So you can call the police and you could get them out, but people don't know that. And the police oftentimes don't know that they have the authority to get those people out because they're trespassing. Then you have those persons who are unsheltered, sleeping on the street, sleeping in hay underneath that canopy that they have at 204 Master called the Courtyard here in Las Vegas. And that's a shame. People should never have to live like that. And the city should not plan for people to live like that. It's easier to house them. And then finally, you have those people who are completely unsheltered and don't want to be a part of society. Well, you have to have a place for them too, but it can't be on the streets of Las Vegas. There are places that we can fashion and design and develop for people who just want to live in the great outdoors. There's some people who say, give me a home where the buffaloes roam and, you know, give me that. I just want to live in the mountains. I've had people tell me, I got a spot in the mountains that I picked out. Well, we can do that and provide them the infrastructure, the plumbing and the electricity and the shelter so that they can live. A lot of people don't go into shelters because they may have a dog and the dogs are not welcome in the shelter. So we have to modify our shelters to enable them to do that. But I can't sleep at night knowing that people are home.
So now that we talked about homelessness and I see your passion, you also mentioned something about education. And I want to watch this quick video and see what your thoughts are. I love Myron Golden, and I want to know what you think.
Okay.
No, people think I'm kidding when I say this, but I'm not. I believe that the school is a terrible thing to do to a child. When I say I believe the school is a terrible thing to do to a child, because number one, the school knows it's a terrible thing. 5-time Teacher of the Year, John Taylor Gatto, wrote a book called Weapons of Mass Instruction. And he became delusional about his industry of teaching when he realized one day that the purpose of a teacher is not to teach the subject. The purpose of the teacher is to teach the system of school. What happens at school? They go into an artificial environment with a bunch of people their age, learn the bad habits of other children's parents, have teachers who don't believe in them, pretending to teach them when they're only attempting to validate their degree. There are good teachers out there, but the system is rigged to manufacture employees for industrial age businesses. It's an outdated, dilapidated, and broke down system, and it makes children feel like they're not worth it. So that's why I believe school is a terrible thing to do to a child.
Interesting. You know, my job is to create a superior public school education for each and every individual child. And that transcends the development of modern buildings with state-of-the-art equipment and facilities which are conducive to safe and potentially educational environments. He spoke about the school environment.
Right.
The school environment has changed. There was a time when you went to school to learn reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now the focus is on science, technology, engineering, and math. And we've gotten away from history and civics and philosophy. We've gotten away from logic. We've gotten away from vocational training, which prepares people to actually go into the workforce pursuing a craft of their choice. So he mentioned creating workers for other companies. And in a sense, he's absolutely right. We can't train people to become widgets and digits. He also mentioned that he thought that children pick up the bad habits of other children. But there's also the potential to pick up the yang, which is the good habits of other children. See, so when I look at a child, I don't presume bad character. I presume the best in terms of their character, but I presume the worst in terms of their circumstances. So as a school system, we have to learn to stand in loco parenti. That means that we have to be there when there is no parent there. There's some children who have two parents who are actively involved and well educated and will go in and advocate for those children and get the best for their child. If we had school choice, they would be the ones whose children would end up in the very best schools, and all those other schools would just be left behind because those advocates wouldn't be there to make sure that every school reaches the same standard. So that's why I say a superior public school education for each and every individual child. I want to create a school system by the mayor of Las Vegas doesn't control the school system, but the mayor of Las Vegas could have a say in who gets elected. Because if a mayor is well positioned and well liked, that mayor can recommend some of the best candidates for the school board and help to improve the school board and help to get people on that school board, help to elect people on that school board who really care about the system and have an understanding and aren't just there to give contracts to their family and friends. So if we focus on making every single school an excellent school, we get away from that discussion about school choice and about whether or not they'll have charter schools, because every child, no matter where they live, can have a good school close to home. There are a lot of concerns about education. One of the biggest for me right now is safety in schools. and there's a falsehood. Yeah, we've gotten to the point where we believe that metal detectors at the door are the answer. But what if someone does something to a child just outside the door? Or better yet, what if they catch him getting off the bus? Even better than that, what if they catch that child on the bus and decide they want to hurt 30 children who are riding on the bus and the bus driver? What if before the children get on the bus, someone does something to the children who are sitting there waiting for the bus? Or what if as you're leaving out of your house? So my point is, you can't police safety. You have to establish a culture of safety. And that means that we have to have people assume responsibility for their own actions. But we also have to recognize that we're only as safe as our most vulnerable resident. If we get to the point where we make everyone viable, including the homeless people, and we can, then our streets are safe. Our communities are safer. But you can't have a police officer there as a forethought before anything happens. So we have to create a culture of concern. If you see something, say something. We have to create a culture of safety. We have a growing gang problem here in Las Vegas. Fortunately, it hasn't gotten out of control. We need to nip that in the bud. But we also have to have a better relationship between our police and our community. I want to get to the point where if a young child says, I want to be a police officer when I grow up, that he's not laughed at or scorned, or she's not. But people say, that's a noble profession. And we can get to that point.
That's so. That would be amazing.
Mhm.
So out of all the things, your top three,
Mhm.
what are your priorities? Like the top three?
So homelessness and public safety go hand in hand as far as I'm concerned, because if people feel unsafe, then they're not safe. Perception becomes reality. So homelessness, a lot of people see homeless people and they immediately feel uncomfortable and they immediately draw inside themselves. I want people to feel safe morning, noon, and night, no matter where you go. Establishing irreproachable public safety service to me means that you get all of the police officers, rank, file, and command, as well as the civilian employees, to understand that they are community employees. It's not just in terms of the policies, practices, procedures, equipment, training, deployment, response time, and just overall performance. We certainly have to take care of those things, but people have to understand that they are one with their police department. So one of the things I would do is establish outdoor roll calls.
All right.
That's where the police officers and even the recruits would stand at parade rest and receive their instructions for the day and, be apprised of things that they need to be aware of. And the community can stand around and watch and become informed as well. So now they're on the same page as police officers and they understand what the challenges are that police officers have, and that they're not just guys sitting around in their car, waiting to give people a ticket. If we do that, it brings people closer together. So now, as soon as that part is over, the formal part, they can break ranks and they can spend time talking to the people in the community and getting familiar with them. And the people in the community get familiar with the police officer. And before you know it, each side is saying, well, they're not that bad. And the police officers get a chance to get to know the children as well as the parents and figure out ways they might be able to help them. But also people will sneak up to the police and whisper, the little boy down the street, he's not a bad kid, but he's under the wrong influence. And the police officer at some point in time can make a point of stopping them and saying hello to him and introducing himself and maybe offering to play basketball with them or give them a ride to school one day, so that they get familiar with one another. When people are familiar with one another, they're more likely to assist one another rather than to bother one another. So we want to make sure that we're developing a police department that respects everyone. So I've got a very extensive safety program, but that's two of the things: homelessness, safety, and obviously education. But we got to take care of our seniors.
Oh, I know you're big on that.
Hmm.
So I guess the whole defund the police, you're not with
No,
that.
I'm not with that.
That's good.
I think we need our
The same
police
page with that.
and our FBI
Well,
and our CIA. They all have goals and responsibilities.
okay, you lost me there.
No, I mean, so here's the thing. The FBI on a national level is responsible for ferreting out crime. And you can't get away from that. You have to have national entities who deal with national problems. No state can deal with that because the criminals know how to move from state to state very, very rapidly. You can't get rid of the federal government because who's going to take care of Social Security if we don't? Who's going to defend us if Russia or China decide they want to invade us? The thing that we have to do is make certain that we get a fair return on our tax dollars. That's what's important to me because we're going to have to pay taxes. Who will resolve a dispute between two different states? So the federal government has its value, but it too needs to be checked. So I agree with you there. You can't just, let them run unfettered. You have to hold them to standards and hold them responsible for their failures.
Maybe clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
It's getting very corrupt.
Yeah, absolutely. It is getting corrupt. And that's why I'm a nonpartisan. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Libertarian. I'm not a part of the independent party. So here in Las Vegas, in Nevada, they have an independent party, which is more extreme than the MAGA Republican Party. So here you have to identify yourself as nonpartisan. But I'm supported by Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, and nonpartisan because my policies are pretty friendly to everyone. I don't believe in mandate. I'm not going to tell you what to do with your life. I don't believe in doing that.
So the whole COVID vaccine thing, you weren't with the mandate?
Shutting down, no. I believe that you have to do that on a case-by-case basis. Plus, you give people a chance to demonstrate that they can still operate safely. And if they can demonstrate that they can operate safely, then you allow them to do that because this is their livelihood. This is their life. And, this is what they press
Their body.
Yeah. I believe in the sanctity of the human being. So obviously, we have to have some common concerns when it comes to healthcare and public safety. But that's why we have government. Government's responsibility is to provide for the common defense, ensure civility, and to take care of those who are weak, afflicted, and permanent disorder.
Spot on.
Yeah.
There are some people that are, they're saying, well, if they're lukewarm, if politicians lukewarm, I don't trust them.
Mhm.
But then you also have the person that says the truth is always in the middle.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Mhm. It's interesting. I ran for governor in the last election here. I got the endorsements of the Las Vegas Sun newspaper and Las Vegas Weekly. They essentially say that I have the best plan for the budget, best plan for public safety, best plan to diversify our economy, and best plan to protect everyone's right to vote. That's why I got in that election, because I felt that the Republican Party was trying to take away our right to vote or our ability to vote. For example, they wanted to get rid of early voting, wanted to get rid of vote by mail. They wanted ID restrictions, and those things would hurt people who are senior and people who are disabled and dependent upon other people more than it would anyone else. You have a lot of homeless people who don't have documentation. You have a lot of people who just don't feel comfortable, don't trust the government enough to submit themselves for whatever reason. And part of that is that disorientation. Part of it is mental illness, feeling like the whole world is against me. And until we heal people and bring everybody back into the fold, we can't put extraordinary requirements on them before they can exercise the fundamental right to vote. So I'm for making certain that no matter what, we're fighting for the average person. I'm good when it comes to business, and I hope we get a chance to talk about my business policies and concerns. But when it comes to the social issue and the humanitarian issues, that's what drives me. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to live a high quality of life.
Regarding the voting, remember, so there are a lot of people that think the last election was rigged and the votes were stolen, and there were a lot of I think there was a documentary that showed like hidden cameras and how they put a little sheet up there and they said, oh, because of it's the COVID, we do it, let's separate they found ways to rig it. What are your thoughts on that? Because maybe with all the illegal immigrants that are coming in to the border right now, all the millions of people, and now we've seen, I don't know if you watch Project Veritas, but this guy filmed all these illegal people coming on a bus. To that point, is that something maybe that you want to comment on?
I'll comment on that all day long.
Okay.
The movie that you're talking about is 2000 Mules.
Okay.
That is such a fake movie. None of what they said is verified. It is very difficult to cheat in an American election the way that they said it happened. The way they tried to cheat was with fake electors. The Republican Party had fake electors who were trying to go in and say, don't listen to those folks who were elected by the people. Listen to us because we represent Trump. No, it's the cheat in American elections is probably 0.00001. And what they found was, you have to do is look at the record of the people who were convicted of cheating. Those were Republicans who were cheating. Not the Democrats. So it's a red herring. It's a false concern. Certainly there's always going to be some little cheat, but it's so difficult. Immigrants can't just go in and vote. You have to have documentation to vote. You have to sign your name. They will verify your name, make certain that the signature matches your signature. Last time I went to vote, they made me sign my name 3 times because I might have written, W without writing William Waltz, or I might have written it slightly different. I might not have put the 3rd on the end. They are very careful regarding elections because keep in mind, sitting at the table where you register is a Republican and a Democrat, and they are both monitoring the process. It's not one person from one side who's making those decisions. So it's very, very difficult to cheat. Vote by mail doesn't result in extraordinary cheating. Early voting doesn't result in extraordinary cheating, and nor does same-day registration. Because if you come in and you don't have identification, you vote provisionally. And when you vote provisionally, that means it is subject to approval. And both sides have to approve it for it to count. So, no, that's a red herring. That's a false narrative. Election cheating is not the concern. And I've been involved in some races in Chicago where I can tell you they have not done what they should have done, but it's structured different. See, in Chicago, the mayor controls the voting apparatus because he appoints the members of the board. And they do what the mayor wants them to do. Here, the Secretary of State controls the voting apparatus. So there's a difference.
Very interesting. What are your thoughts on the fact that the Democratic cities are the ones with the most crime? Chicago has the most crime.
Well, Chicago doesn't have the most crime in the United States. No. The problem in Chicago is the murder clearance rate. They don't arrest and convict murderers. They do to the tune on an average of about 11 or 12%. The national average is more like 80%. Here in Las Vegas, it's more like 87%. So Las Vegas does an excellent job. But when people feel like they can get away with murder, they murder. And Chicago is that place where they do that. There are other cities that have a higher crime rate per capita than Chicago, but any crime rate, in my opinion, is too much. I think that you need to shoot for 0 tolerance when it comes to crime. Again, as I said, you can't police your way out of it. You have to develop a culture. And that starts with employment, with your 16-year-olds. Because when people are employed, they walk differently, they talk differently, they trust differently, they behave differently. A young 16-year-old who has to go to work at McDonald's after school is not going to sit in the washroom and smoke weed, because they know if they come into that job smelling like weed, they're going to be sent home or they're going to be dismissed. And they've grown accustomed to that. Many of them work because it's tough enough on their parents to provide them, food, clothing, and shelter, but then they want those extra things. And they should. We want them to aspire to those things. We want them to have desires. We want them to be realistic and rational. We don't want them going out trying to buy a $500 pair of Jordans when they can barely afford, a pair of nice jeans. So I believe that we have to make certain that we stay as safe as we possibly can. And we have to make sure that everyone feels like they're part of the solution and no one wants to be the problem. I believe we have too many people in jail. I believe that we have to reduce our prison population. We've forgotten what the purpose of prison is. It's not just to punish people and put them away for a lifetime. I think the important thing is we have to make sure that we're rehabilitating our detainees, because when they come out and re-enter society, we want them to come out better than they were then.
I would have a lot of questions on that, but I know you want to talk about your business.
No.
And the whole jail thing. Who would be in jail? Who would you keep in jail?
Oh, violent criminals. Non-violent offenders. Oh, yeah. Any violent offenders.
The theft? No?
Non-violent offenders,
So
I don't
would
believe
put those?
you put those people in training, put them in programs where they learn how to be responsible citizens. But it costs $43,000 a year to lock up one inmate. And we pay for that. And if a person stole pizza 3 times because they were hungry, I don't want to pay $43,000 a year for them to be incarcerated. I'd much rather they be in rehabilitation and job skill development training so that they can become a part of society and go to work and pay taxes like everyone else, instead of us using our tax dollars to subsidize them and then possibly their families, which haven't done anything wrong. So you have to have a program that ensures that those persons who are violent are put away on a course towards rehabilitation. But those persons who are nonviolent offenders, most of them are not a danger to themselves or any other human being, and they don't belong in jail.
I know that a lot of homeless people in New York in the wintertime, they steal on purpose so then they can have a place to go sleep. And so it's like they'd rather go to jail because it's that cold and that bad to be on the streets. So
and it's a shame when that's their option, instead of us having an option for them that will provide them stable housing. And we have enough to do that. The city of Las Vegas is the worst when it comes to providing stability for homeless people. They're NOFOs. These are notice of funding opportunities. And in the last NOFO that Las Vegas filled out, only 15% of that was designated towards housing, and another 15% towards temporary housing. But
that's it.
70% of it went to services like the Red Cross and other organizations that just provide service. We have to get away from just providing service and move towards providing stable housing to people. As a matter of fact, Las Vegas is last in the country per capita when it comes to providing housing for those people who were homeless, transitioning them to housing. So we have to change our philosophy. We'll spend money with the Red Cross, Urban League, and other organizations and give them money for service, but we don't take the time to really solve issues, make them holistic, make them viable again. And that has to be our goal.
I agree. And for your business, you mentioned the plans.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to business, there are several types of business. In business, you're either a producer, a distributor, a vendor, or a lender. There are 4 forms of production: farming, fishing, mining, and manufacturing. There are 4 types of distribution: information reporter, domestic transporter, importer, and exporter. There are 3 types of vendors: wholesale, retail, and real estate sales. And then finally, the three types of lenders: services, financial, and property. We have to get people to the point where they understand what their business is and set their sights higher. So they have to learn how to move up the ladder and along the way, develop several streams of income, because we ultimately want everybody here in Las Vegas to get to the point where they are manufacturers, where they're producers, where they are providing products, goods, services, and resources that can be introduced into the stream of the national and global economy, where they can bring new money, jobs, and opportunity back to Las Vegas. That's critical and important. So my goal as mayor is to help them to do that. So our small businesses, we want to provide them the workforce that they need, rather than simply use our money to train them in a classroom. We want to train them on the job. So that means that we'll identify a number of local businesses, restaurants, and hotels, service-oriented, as well as small manufacturing companies and printers, and provide them employees who can help them to grow, even if it's marketing employees, employees that they couldn't afford to pay, because we want the world to know who they are and what they have to offer so that they can then sell those products to everyone. Additionally, when it comes to construction companies and those who provide service to the city of Las Vegas, we want to unbundle our contracts and make them smaller, provide wrap-up bonding and insurance, provide access to capital, loans, and grants, the kinds of things that stand in the way of businesses being able to do business with Las Vegas, because sometimes they're required to have large pieces of equipment, and it's not possible for them to get those large pieces of equipment because they don't have jobs to utilize them on to pay for them. And then finally, we want, so we'll allow them to lease those types of equipment rather than require that they own, and then allow protege-mentor relationships so that they can develop a relationship with the more successful businesses and avoid the mistakes of the past. And we'll do all of that with transparency so that everybody knows that everything is above board and we don't have to worry about the cheap end. When we do that, it will reduce our cost, because currently you might have two companies that qualify and can bid on a project. And so you get real high bids instead of low bids. But if you have 10 people that can bid on a project, the cost to the citizens becomes lower.
I like that. I like that rationale.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very good. And where can people find you, follow you, learn more about you?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. Go to dockwalls.com.
That's all.
That's
No social media.
DOCKWALLS.com. Or call me directly. Our cell phone number is 702-349-4809. 702-349-4809. I never get tired of talking to people.
Wow. That's amazing. Hopefully you won't get any stalker. Oh, yeah. That's what it looks like at night.
If we do, we're going to treat them and support it.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for your time. Is there
It's such a
anything
pleasure.
you would like me, anything you would have wanted me to ask?
Yeah, I mean, one of my jobs is to unify this city. So we're going to unify the city by promoting cultural and diversity sensitivity amongst people of all ages, races, socioeconomic backgrounds, all religious persuasions, all sexual orientation, all physical and mental disabilities and limitations, because I understand that we're inextricably intertwined and that we all need each other, and we're stronger together than we are apart.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.